You are watching DHTV from California State University, Dominguez Hills.
Now, the 7 Years' War. One of the things that's most important about the 7 Years' War is, again, it's going to lay out what I have been sharing with you about the strategies that are going to be used by native peoples in this region here, because the 7 Years' War, or the French and Indian War, is very important because it's British attempts to go into the Ohio, it's Spanish attempts to go into the Mississippi, and of course the French are the ones that are laying claim to these lands. But native peoples, again, have created formidable nation states by which to stop the advance of populations into their area. And so the 7 Years' War reveals imperial designs and British parliaments exercise over colonial trade and expansion. Now, it started in 1699 with England trying to gain control over the colonies and the shipment of goods out of this region. So molasses, woolen cloth, finished iron products, beaver hats had to be shipped to England first before export abroad. And then England is going to come in with the Molasses Act of 1733, trying to control the colonies in their export trade. This led to smuggling. But what was most important was this region here known as the Ohio River. Now, Ohio is a Seneca word, and the Senecas occupy western New York and Buffalo region and Ohio, the Ohio area. But the Ohio is a word, a Seneca word, you pronounce it Ohio, and it means beautiful waters for Lake Erie. So in the Ohio Valley, French traders or English traders from Virginia and Pennsylvania are going to move into the Ohio Valley, and the French traders are going to choose to block their expansion. This is going to lead to what is known as the 7 Years' War, or the French and Indian War. And what's going to happen in this particular war is that local indigenous groups are going to join sides that benefited their position. The Cherokee, as you're going to read in the textbook, are going to sue for peace because they are impacted by smallpox, they had low ammunition, and they needed food. But one of the things that's going to happen in this war is that this war is going to spread out to the Caribbean. And the French, the British, and the Spanish are going to be fighting for the Caribbean islands. And once the war spreads to the Caribbean, it's going to wreak havoc on the economy. The British, again, on the continent, it's going to be known as the French and Indian War, but in Europe, it's going to be known as the 7 Years' War over control of the Mississippi. The British are going to beat the hated French. And this is going to be a turning point in the war that you're going to be reading in the textbook, where William Pitt, an English prime minister, threw full military might into the American campaign. And one of the things that's going to happen is that this war is going to create an economic depression in the colonies, and it's going to leave the colonies debt-ridden. And once the war spreads into the Caribbean, a commercial downturn is going to occur as the Caribbean trade is going to shut down, and the colonies had relied on Caribbean trade. So, of course, the hardships when the economy is down fell hard on the laboring classes in the coastal societies. So when we take a look at the 1760s, it was a decade of economic depression. So what's going to happen is that when the British take over this region here, and the British are going to have to kind of try to organize the negotiation process with the native peoples by disentailing them from their lands and then allowing settlers to come in. So they needed to create a colonial policy where they could at least negotiate with the native peoples, because the native peoples in this region had created formidable groups that would stop expansion of colonial society. But the Americans, the colonists, the British colonists, they thought that this was their God-given right, these lands. And so all of them began all the colonial assemblies began to speculate in Western lands. In other words, every colonial legislative assembly started selling off shares to this lands without even looking at the lands or surveying the lands. They're already, all of the elite classes are already eyeing this territory. Again, native peoples are not considered human in this. So speculation occurred. And the idea was to encourage social and economic mobility amongst the lesser populations, especially for those who had fought in the French and Indian War. They wanted land, and that's the key, is when you go out and fight, you want the piece of land that you're going to be fighting for. So the British colonists, they thought that these lands was their God-given right. But the native peoples were provided a formidable obstacle, and any time settlers went out there, the native peoples were there to meet them, to stop them from going across the Appalachian Mountains. So Great Britain, in order to control the region and stop the violence, issued what is known as the Proclamation Line of 1763. And this proclamation line went along the Appalachian Mountains, and they told the colonists, don't go into this region because then you're going to start wars. And we don't want to start wars. What we want to do is negotiate with native peoples, disentail them from their lands, and then we'll create an orderly colonial policy. Plus, Great Britain needed money to finance this scheme of grandeur. They won a tremendous territory, but at a big price. So they needed to create proper colonization schemes, since they're dealing with more powerful native nations. They needed military manpower and a border patrol to control the territory, and they needed to assert their supremacy over the colonies. So they ordered colonial governors to reserve lands west of the Appalachian Mountains for native nations. Well, this led to resistance amongst the population, and so I'm going to be sending you to two particular documentaries where you're going to watch. One is the Pontiac's Rebellion, of which I have an assignment for you to deal with, and then taking into the revolutionary period so we can understand the American Revolution. We'll take a look at the Haudenosaunee, and in this PowerPoint I've provided for you it's available to you so that you can kind of link this. Go ahead and go to the links so that you can watch these documentaries. However, I'll also be posting them for you so that you can watch them online. So this is the resistance.
You are watching DHTV from California State University, Dominguez Hills.